All right, welcome back, folks. Welcome back to KW9. I'm Chip Whitley, and this is Tyrone Washington. We're here talking about the brand new Arizona immigration law, SB 1070. Take it away.
So the law in Arizona right now, so they deal with a lot of illegal immigration. So the thing the governor has enacted is any police officer can make a lawful stop or arrest if they have any suspicion that you are an illegal immigrant, and it is a misdemeanor if you ain't got your green card on you. So we're going to send it to our buddies at CNN and see what they got to say.
Covering the historic event live from Phoenix today, and he's joining us now. And John, this is obviously being viewed by a lot of other states who have also been trying to enact their own laws. How is this likely to play in some other areas?
Whether you're for or against your law here in Arizona, you're on the cutting edge of a national debate. People are watching this, to see what the courts will do now. They were watching to see how this law might be implemented tomorrow. They will watch the portions that will be implemented. But at least a handful of states are trying to do almost exactly what Arizona did, and a bunch of other states are doing some similar things, essentially testing what Arizona did. How much rights do the states have to get into the business of enforcing immigration? That's at a legislative level across the country. And as you full well know, from your governor's race here, your Senate race here, all the other races here, this is an issue not only in a lot of elections here in Arizona, across the country as well.
The political issue for us in many of the races here. John, why isn't the White House saying anything, though? I mean, certainly President Obama has come out in the past against 1070, but they're deferring everything to justice as if the two work independently here.
No doubt any reporter who covers the White House, I did it for 8.5 years, will try to get that question to the president. They're being careful for a number of reasons. One is the legal reason. They're not sure they'll win the next round. They think they will. They're confident at the White House, but this is only an injunction. They haven't won on the merits of the case yet, so they did leave it to Justice and Homeland Security. Number two, politically, this is a tricky one for the president. He does think suing Arizona helps him with Latino voters, helps the Democratic Party with Latino voters, but in a number of states, Colorado for one, many other states out here in the West and across the country, many conservative Democrats were mad when the Obama Justice Department filed suit against the Arizona law, and they don't want the president stirring up the immigration debate in the final weeks until the election.
Do you feel like this is going to cost the president some seats in Congress and the Senate come these midterm elections here?
The calculation you make today, and you see it in how Governor Brewer has helped herself here politically, is that this issue in the short term, meaning this election year, helps the Republicans, helps the conservatives, helps the Tea Party movement generate energy. One question to that is whether Latinos get motivated to turn out not only here in Arizona, but in some other states. There's a longer term question. Many in the Republican Party, dating back to the Bush administration, have warned if you take steps like what Arizona is doing, you will offend Latino voters for a generation. But in the short term, in the Obama White House, they know they promised Latinos they would pass comprehensive immigration reform. They know that base is mad at them right now. But in the short term, most Democrats privately will tell you this one benefits Republicans.
CNN's John King in Phoenix.
All right, y'all, now we're going to send it to our buddies at CBS for a live interview with an immigrant and police officers in Arizona.
Daniela Cruz was brought to America from Mexico as a child. The undocumented immigrant drives without a license. Arizona's new law means she could face more than a ticket if stopped by police.
Sometimes when there's a police car behind me, my heart does start to race. I start to get nervous. I start to get shaky just because I know that I can get pulled over for anything.
Police here are required to determine the immigration status of a person stopped or arrested if there's a, quote, reasonable suspicion they are in the U.S. illegally. But Phoenix Police Chief Daniel Garcia says no one will be stopped without cause.
That's the point that I think people have a tendency to forget. Before you have reasonable suspicion that someone's here illegally, you have to have reasonable suspicion as a police officer that a crime has occurred before you have reasonable suspicion on the documentation or not.
Is a crime not stopping fully at a stop sign?
Yes, sir, it can be that.
Chief Garcia says suspects will be held while officers check with federal officials at ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
The question is, how long are we going to detain him? I believe it should be no longer than any other traffic stop that occurs, 10 minutes at the most. If ICE answers, or if ICE answers, then we have an answer. If they don't answer, then we have an obligation to let that citizen go.
But Alessandra Soler of the American Civil Liberties Union says civil rights advocates will be watching for signs of racial profiling.
Law enforcement officials across the state have said we can enforce the Show Me Your Papers law without racial profiling.
And that's a real problem because law enforcement is saying, trust us, we know better, we're not going to engage in racial profiling. But the reality is that they're ignoring a very real problem of racial profiling that we have had in this state for a very, very long time.
Federal authorities say they will answer calls from Arizona officials to check immigration status. But, Scott, they will only take into custody illegal immigrants who are violent criminals or those who have crossed the border repeatedly.
All right, so I'm here with Carlos from Bayside Church, and we're going to interview him on a question and get more of a pastor's perspective and just see, what the viewpoints are from a different point of view. So the Arizona immigration law states that a police officer can detain or demand citizenship, the papers, for anybody over the age of 18 years old. And a lot of people are claiming that it's a sense of racial profiling and that it's inhumane and it shouldn't be done. So what are your viewpoints based off a more biblical perspective?
Yeah, I think it pulls in two different directions for me. I think the American in me wants to, semi-support it because I don't want a bunch of illegal immigrants taking the jobs that Americans should have. But at the same time, as a pastor, I care and love for all people. So really, I think it's not the best solution, but I think until you give us a better solution, if you give us the better solution, then maybe we'll go towards that. But I think if Arizona law says that and that's what's working for them, then I think that's what's working for them. I think that's what's going on. So, but like I said, the pastor in me wants to say like all immigrants should be able to live the American dream and stuff like that because I care for them. But the American in me just pulls in a different way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're here with Matt Watson's son, Chad. Matt Watson is very sick, so he sent us his answers and questions and all that good stuff. So Chad's going to read it off for us, so take it away.
So my dad is a immigrant from Canada, so he doesn't necessarily deal with the racial profiling that the Latin American immigrants deal with, but he definitely has strong opinions on everything. So I'm just going to start with a general summary of his immigration process. So he moved here from Canada in 1993 when he was about 13. He initially moved down here on a trial basis and did not have a visa or a green card, and lived under the regulation that people from Canada can be here up to 6 months at a time with a visitor's pass, not necessarily a visa. So then his family decided that in the first year that they wanted to stay in the U.S., so my grandfather applied for an investor's visa so that we could legally stay in the U.S. My uncle and him were 14 and 12 at the time, so they weren't old enough to work at all. They had the investor's visa for many years, and his dad ended up buying a business here in the U.S. They eventually applied for permanent residence and got their green cards. It was a very lengthy process from the time of the application to the time they were approved, and they actually had to go to the U.S. consultant in Montreal for physicals and an interview. They were there for a week, and after very stressful interviews, they were approved. My grandfather was told at this point in the process that the interview would essentially be a formality and they had nothing to worry about. It was anything but that. My dad doesn't think he's ever seen my grandfather so stressed ever. Thankfully, they made it through, and now we're all legal permanent residents in the U.S., and we can stay here for the rest of our lives as long as my father continues to renew his green card every 10 years. And then he was asked for his thoughts on President Trump's immigration views. And he, surprisingly, being from Canada, a very liberal-minded country, as we all know, agrees with Trump's laws 1,000%. He claims that most legal immigrants do. The whole nation, so the whole notion that we shouldn't protect our borders and that we should have no immigration laws is ridiculous. And up until about 5 years ago, it was pretty much unheard of. People hate Trump, so they really aren't just thinking straight, they're just thinking through blinders just because they don't like him. And at the exact same time, Obama, honestly, his views were worse, but people didn't say anything because he just didn't have a big mouth and wasn't on social media all the time. But honestly, we as a family completely agree with Trump's views. People go through the process long enough that they deserve to actually be here for those who have earned it, and it shouldn't just be handed out like candy on Halloween. But yeah, that's just his brief summary on that. And his reaction to the Arizona laws. And it was actually, before this interview, he had never heard of this. And he's actually thinks it seems a little excessive because I can personally attest he never carries around his green card or really any of his other stuff. And he's never been asked for it during a routine traffic stop. And to be fair, he is a white male. He's not Hispanic looking in any sort. But he's not really sure how to feel about it. He does think it seems a little unfair, and it's definitely a very negative, like claims and stuff. But he does know that Arizona does deal with a lot of illegal immigration due to their location, and that their border isn't the strongest along that line. But he doesn't think it's necessary to have your papers on you at all time, and it definitely shouldn't be a crime to have them on you. But yeah.
All right, so thank you for that and your dad's perspective, and we'll send it back to you guys. All right, folks, thank you for tuning in to KW9. We're your hosts, Chip Whitley and Tyrone Washington.
All right, y'all. Be sure to turn in tomorrow at 7 p.m., all right, for the next Daily Scoop. Stay classy, San Diego.